He immediately sent Berenice away, against his will and hers, wrote Suetonius. Why did the darling of Rome banish the woman he loved? You wake up to the echo of footsteps on marble, the creaking of wheels cutting through uneven stones, and the cries of merchants that have not subsided since evening. The air is heavy with the smell of resin from torches, cheap incense, and sour wine from broken amphorae. Smoke swirls in the darkness, hanging over the forum, where shadows fall in long lines along the columns. This is Rome in the 70s AD, inflated by victories but scarred by war. Only a few months have passed since the legions crushed the uprising in Judea. In triumph, Vespasian and his son Titus marched through these streets, leading captives and carrying treasures from the temple in Jerusalem. The Arch of Titus, which stands here today, is carved with this moment, Roman soldiers carrying a 7-branched candlestick, a menorah. The stone has preserved what history has tried to erase. This relief with the menorah is a documentary memory of the triumph. Rome carved in stone what was burned in the fire of Jerusalem. Imagine, you are walking along this very road, and this relief still hangs above your head. Isn't it strange that stone remembers more than people? That day, the crowd roared, its voice rising under the arches and statues. And now, in the silence of the night, those same sounds echo colder, like a reminder of the empire. It takes, but it does not give. In the heart of Rome, where triumphs are carved in stone and memory always belongs to the victors, another story was born. Not about battles and fires, but about love that dared to challenge the empire itself. Amidst the marble halls and whispers of fear lived a woman whose presence unsettled Rome. Her name was Berenice. She was a queen, a lover, and a foreigner. And the man she loved, Titus, was to become emperor. Together, they could have changed the empire, and it was the empire that tore them apart. The torches flicker. Look closely, the city never sleeps. Its stones remember. She was born around 28 AD into a family where power and ambition were a hereditary burden. Her father was Herod Agrippa I, grandson of Herod the Great, known from the gospel story of the massacre of the innocents. His power was held in a delicate balance between Rome and his own people. Berenice's mother was Cypros, a noblewoman who grew up amid luxury and intrigue. From childhood, Berenice breathed the atmosphere of the court, the aromas of spices, the gold of jewelry, the whispers of advisors and slaves. In the palace, every step was politics, every word a weapon. And from her youth, she was surrounded by gossip. Ancient chroniclers hinted at an overly close relationship with her brother Agrippa II. Whether it was slander from enemies or echoes of fears, in Rome and the East, it turned into a scandal. But even the rumors only reinforced the aura of mystery surrounding the princess. Her marriages were as political as the life of the Herodian dynasty. Berenice was first married to Marcus Julius Alexander. This early union quickly faded and preceded her marriage to her uncle, Herod of Chalcis, ruler of a small kingdom. After his death, Berenice's name once again became a bargaining chip. She married King Polemon II of Cilicia, but soon left him, refusing his terms, a scandal for the first century and at the same time a clear statement of her own will. For a woman of the East, it sounded like a challenge. Be honest, do you know many women of that time who could simply refuse a dynastic marriage? Berenice did just that. This is how her image emerges, a queen whose life was accompanied by jewels, oriental fabrics, and endless gossip. For some, she was a foreign beauty with hidden intentions. For others, she was a woman who chose her own destiny in a world where even men rarely had the right to choose. The year is 66 AD. An uprising breaks out in Judea, which quickly turns into a war. Legions are advancing, cities are being razed to the ground, and even shrines are not spared from the flames. Berenice found herself caught between two fires. She was a queen from the Herodian dynasty, a Jew by birth, but at the same time an ally of Rome. When the rebels raised their banners in Jerusalem, she went out before the crowd and begged them to lay down their arms and not challenge an empire that could not be defeated. Her words were met with hatred. To her own people, she became a traitor. To Rome, she was a woman willing to sacrifice everything for stability. Josephus recalls a scene that shocked even her contemporaries. Berenice, barefoot and wearing a Nazarene vow, stands before the procurator Florus and begs him to stop the violence. Even the queen, who renounced luxury and let her hair down as a sign of her vow, could not stop the wheel of war. Berenice, under the Nazarite vow, barefoot, with her hair loose, begs for the violence to stop. Barefoot and under the Nazarite vow, she begged for the violence to stop, and nearly died at the hands of the soldiers. Titus, Vespasian's younger son, enters the scene. He is in his early 30s. He does not yet wear the purple of the emperor, but he already commands legions. It is he who leads the troops against Jerusalem. His men dig trenches, erect siege engines, and set the city on fire. In August 70, it falls. The temple, the heart of the Jewish world, is engulfed in flames. The gold of the sanctuary melts in the heat, and smoke rises above the city, covering the sky. Imagine this confrontation. He is a Roman conqueror who destroyed the sanctuary of her people. She is a queen who has already been rejected by her own people, but who saw a future only in alliance with Rome. Their closeness was born not in gardens or at banquets, but against the backdrop of war. For Rome, this woman will become a danger. For Titus, she will become a passion. For Berenice herself, she will become a chance to become more than just a princess on the eastern outskirts of the empire. Berenice appeared in Rome not as a captive, but as a queen living in a palace next to Titus. She arrived surrounded by servants and slaves, dressed in oriental fabrics heavy with jewels. And very quickly she began to live with him as his wife. Her presence could not be hidden. People whispered in the streets, "Here she is, the woman from the east who charmed the heir to the empire." For ordinary people, her image became legendary, a foreigner with dark eyes, resembling a new Cleopatra. But in the Senate, she was poison. The Romans still remembered how the alliance between Antony and Cleopatra had nearly split the state. And now, in every gesture of Berenice, they saw a repeat of that catastrophe. In the palace, she lived like a real empress. Her chambers were filled with the scents of oriental oils, gold sparkled on her bracelets, and purple covered her bed. Roman matrons, learning of her luxury, gritted their teeth. The foreigner overshadowed their restrained dignity. But most importantly, she was close to Titus. She sat next to him during performances when the crowd roared in the arenas. She went out with him on the streets, causing whispers and condemnation. In private conversations, senators asked the same question: would he allow this Eastern woman to become the mistress of Rome? Tell me, would Rome forgive another Cleopatra? For Berenice, it was a triumph. She was no longer a foreign princess, she was almost an empress. But clouds were gathering behind this height. Because in Rome, even victors were not forgiven for love that reminded them of old fears. Rome always lived on memories, and fears that were engraved in the memory of generations. When Berenice's name began to be whispered in the streets and in the Senate columns, everyone remembered another woman, Cleopatra. After the alliance between Antony and Cleopatra, in the political imagination of Rome, any Eastern queen in power was a potential threat. A little over 100 years had passed since Mark Antony's alliance with the Queen of Egypt nearly destroyed the Republic. In Rome's political imagination, any Eastern queen on the throne was a threat of a repeat of Antony and Cleopatra. Their story ended in tragedy, defeat, death, and the end of a dynasty. For the Romans, this was a lesson: a foreign woman is capable of ruining even the strongest man. Therefore, every gesture of Berenice was seen through this prism. She appeared next to Titus, and the senators saw a new Cleopatra. He smiled at her at a banquet, and they whispered, "A new Antony." In Rome, where the memory of civil wars was still alive, such an analogy sounded more frightening than any army. Imagine the caricatures that circulated around the city: Titus as a weak ruler, consumed by passion, and Berenice as a cunning seductress, an Eastern witch who supposedly held the empire by the throat. Rumors multiplied: she wants the crown, she already rules through him. But the paradox was that for Titus, she was neither an enemy nor a threat. She was the woman who had gone with him through the ruins of Jerusalem and through triumph in Rome. In his eyes, she was an ally. In the eyes of others, she was merely a repeat of an ancient catastrophe. 79 AD. Vespasian, the old emperor, dies at his estate. The legions, the Senate, and the people recognize his son, Titus. The son of a commander, the conqueror of Judea, the hero of triumph, ascends the throne. Next to him is Berenice. She is no longer just a queen from the eastern outskirts, but a woman who lives in Caesar's palace, walks alongside the emperor, and sits next to him in the box during the games. For her, this is the pinnacle. In her 40s, she has achieved what no foreign woman has achieved since Cleopatra. But Rome does not forget. Speeches are heard in the Senate, a foreigner cannot rule Rome. Behind Titus' back, caricatures are drawn again, depicting him as a puppet in the hands of an Eastern woman. Rumors spread in the streets, the Jewess wants to sit on the throne, she is the new queen of Egypt. The people adored him, they spoke of the emperor's generosity and good deeds. But even such love from the people did not save him from the fears of the Senate. Think about it, what is it like to be the most beloved emperor and at the same time feel that Rome is ready to hate you just because of the woman you love? For Berenice, every day in the palace was like walking on a knife's edge. She was with her beloved and stood at the pinnacle of power. But outside the palace walls, the senators were already preparing a different future. His reign will be marked by events. 79, Vesuvius, 80, a great fire in the capital, then, an epidemic. It happened suddenly. The empire demanded a sacrifice. And she became that sacrifice. Titus hesitated for a long time, but the pressure from the Senate and the people was unbearable. Rome did not accept a foreigner on the throne. The emperor had to choose between love and power. Berenice left the palace at night. Torches flickered in the corridors, casting long shadows on the marble walls. Servants hurriedly carried out chests full of jewels and fabrics, which yesterday had seemed a sign of triumph, but now had become a burden. She walked slowly, as if she wanted to remember these steps forever. Titus stood on the balcony. His hands clenched the stone so tightly that his fingers turned white. He watched her walk away, but did not take a single step. He did not call out to her. Because he knew that if he stopped her, he would lose his empire. Suetonius left a short but poignant phrase, Berenicem statim aburb dimisit, invitus invitum. That is, he immediately sent Berenice away from the city, against his will and against hers. Think for yourself, how many ancient biographers allowed themselves to write so openly about the emperor's pain? The torches went out one by one. The creaking of wheels was lost in the nighttime Rome. And with it, she disappeared. Just as all women dangerous to the empire disappeared, their names were erased, their memory was hidden, only a shadow remained. After her departure, Titus remained alone. He did not take a wife or form new dynastic alliances, which the Senate had been eagerly awaiting. The emperor, who was called Amor ac Delicii Generis Humani, the beloved and delight of mankind, lived among marble and triumphs, but without the one he called his beloved. His reign lasted only 2 years. During this time, Rome suffered disasters that engraved his name in history, the eruption of Vesuvius in 79, a fire in the capital in 80, and an epidemic. Titus devoted all his resources to reconstruction and helping the people, and even his enemies acknowledged that he shared the grief of his people. There is a well-known story. One evening, Titus said to his friends, Amici, diem perdidai, friends, I have lost the day. He meant that he had done no good that day. Doesn't this show how he is remembered, as a ruler who sought humanity? But behind closed doors, he was a lonely man, haunted by the shadow of lost love. Berenice, on the other hand, disappeared from the pages of history. No source tells of her further fate. No letters, no testimonies, not even gossip. Her name was erased as if she were dangerous even to remember. In 81, Titus died at the age of only 41. Some said it was illness, others said it was poison. But even in his last words, according to ancient authors, there was bitterness. It was as if he was leaving life not only as an emperor, but also as a man who was not allowed to be happy. Her shadow remained with him. And perhaps it was this shadow that made him the most human of all emperors. The forum plunges into silence again. The torches burn out, leaving the smell of resin and soot. The stone underfoot is cold, but it remembers the footsteps of those who came before us. Her name was not engraved on the triumphal arches. Her face was not preserved in mosaics. For official history, she disappeared, as if there had been no queen who lived in the palace, as if there had been no love capable of challenging the empire. Titus' arch still holds the menorah in stone, the triumph was remembered, but her name was erased. Why is it so easy for empires to remember victories and so easy to erase those who loved outside the rules? The shadow of Berenice remains. It reminds us that even the most powerful were subject not only to the gods or the sword, but also to the fears of their own people. Titus could raise legions and rebuild cities after disaster, but he could not defend the woman he loved. Their story is not just a romance between two people. It is proof that love in Rome was a hostage to politics. That women's voices could be erased from the annals simply because they were too loud. Listen, this whisper still lives in the stones of the Forum. It holds the memory of the queen whom Rome did not accept and the emperor who remained alone because he did not dare to choose his heart over his empire. And you, what would you choose?